Separated by cosmic cabinets, Brandon, Paul, and Logan are broadcasting the Breakdown podcast live using their telepathic powers. My name is Brandon Miracle, broadcasting live from the Break Room Arcade. If you look south of me in the video version, you'll see the beautiful face of Paul Anderson, broadcasting live from the Break Room Clubhouse. To the right of me in the video version is the wonderful face of Logan Welliver, broadcasting live from the Break Room bedroom.
Stop! I'm done. I'm not doing this. Fallout New Vegas actually just finished downloading, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that instead. So I'll talk to you guys later.
Logan is officially banished from the Break Room Arcade. As you can see, he's no longer in the video.
Just kidding. But seriously.
Welcome to the Breakdown podcast. We got a lot of things to talk about. We're recording on May 4th, 2018. Nintendo's president Kimishima is stepping down and has announced his successor, Shuntaro Furukawa. We'll be talking about that. The finale of Final Space premiered on Monday. We'll be discussing our feelings on that. And we've all finished God of War for PlayStation 4, so we will be talking about that.
What? God of War?
Did you finish God of War?
Yeah, I finished God of War.
Good.
You better have.
So
I finished it better than you guys did.
We got some things that we got to talk about before we get into the main show.
What?
If you go to our Twitter right now, you'll see a poll pinned to the top of the page. We need you guys to help us name our gameplay segments here on the Break Room Arcade. We've got a couple options available. We have Arcade Cabinet, Power Strip, Joystick and Buttons, and Button Mash. You can also tweet us your own creations, and then we will vote on those as well. If we like yours enough and we pick it, you'll even get credited for making the show title. So definitely go do that. We have 1 day left to decide. Button Mash is currently in first place with 4 votes. It's we're closing in on that decision. So if you don't like it, you need to get in here. Other things that we need to talk about this morning: we officially launched our Patreon. That's right. If you go to the links that Logan is posting in the chat, as well as the description of the YouTube video, you'll find links to our Patreon page. For as little as $1 a month, you can show your support to the show. It really helps us out. We want to make this something we can do full-time, and the only way we're going to achieve that as of right now is with some help from you guys. There are some pretty cool rewards, including some exclusive Discord access that you'll find available in that. If you want to join the public version of the Discord, you can actually click the link that is also in the YouTube description.
Click it!
For $1 a month, you'll be a roomie. You'll get early access to our videos, the ability to ask questions. For the new end segment we're going to do on the Breakdown podcast, you can ask us questions. We'll each come with a question that we pick at the end of the episode, and we'll answer them on the show for you. And the other one I want to talk about real quick is the $5 reward. You get private channel access on the Discord page. There's actually a really cool element to the Breakdown podcast that you get for doing that. You'll get access to the topic suggestion channel. Once a month, we'll be doing a patron-focused episode. That's right. You guys will choose the topic for the show. So, you want to get in there. We'll have polls for all the suggestions. Whoever wins, that's going to be the show topic within reason. So if you want access to that, definitely do that. This $5 tier. And there's going to be an exclusive Patreon t-shirt that'll be coming shortly. So also look forward to that. That's all we got to talk about. With all that stuff, we'll move into the news that President of Nintendo, Kimishima, has officially announced at the last investors meeting that, or the financial meeting, that he is stepping down as president of Nintendo, and he has announced his successor, and that is President Shuntaro Furukawa.
He'll be gone but never forgotten.
A lot of people were surprised that Kimishima has announced that he's stepping down. I don't understand why, because it was made abundantly clear that when he took the position that it was on a short-term basis.
Is it bad that people don't want him to step down? Like, look at what all he's done. He's done a lot of really great things in his presidency.
That's a good question. Like, how much of this has he done, and how much of it is merely just taking on some of the stuff that Iwata left behind? You know, obviously he has some effect of it, but you know, there's no saying that, you know, I mean, he didn't do a poor job. I mean, the company's still alive, and he obviously had some business sense. But yeah, I mean, we lost the last CEO and president of Nintendo a few years ago, and it was not like an expected thing. It just kind of happened. And So when people take over in that kind of situation, it's not always like long term. I'm actually surprised that he was CEO for this long before he decided to like
2.5 years actually. I expected maybe like a brief 6-month stint.
I think that's probably why it's so shocking. You kind of just assume after 2.5 years, you know,
that he's here to stay.
Hey, maybe he's here for a while.
Almost the most important thing about all of this is that Shuntaro Furukawa is a younger guy. He's in his mid-40s. Is that correct?
No, I think he's in his 50s.
I'm pretty sure he's 40s.
No, he's like younger, but he's still not like super young or anything like that.
Well, I would say that about 40, but
I'm pretty sure.
Regardless, we're getting some younger blood in a leadership position at Nintendo, which is kind of a big deal. We're definitely like in a generational shift with the company. Things are definitely changing. Like you see a lot of things.
45.
Okay, that's what I thought. So like games like Splatoon are the result of young minds. Games like ARMS, young minds. A lot of the things we see in Super Mario Odyssey and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild are because of young developers that are joining Nintendo's teams, and they're getting enough power to make the changes that that they come up with, their ideas. It's nice to see. I don't want to talk down about Miyamoto, but it's nice to see a Nintendo that isn't completely run by a name like Miyamoto or an Aonuma.
Right.
I think it's only a good thing to get like younger, fresher people in there and kind of see what ideas they can come up with and kind of push through.
Okay. Also, I was wrong. He's 46. So you were right, Brandon. He was in his mid 40s.
Did you not hear Paul already correct you?
Nope, I didn't hear him correct you. I was looking it up myself.
Logan doesn't hear people correct him.
This is why this is why the goal is to eventually, be able to do this all in the same place, because it's a lot easier to keep a track of all that when we're all face to face. Anyway, moving on. He's a young dude and he's taking over.
Yeah. It seems like Kimishima is pretty confident in him. It sounds like for the most part, Furukawa is just going to drive the boat in the direction it was kind of already headed, but I think the boat was steered by the younger minds anyway. So,
I think the two of them worked really closely together, and that's partially why Furukawa was chosen.
Yeah,
because it sounded like he worked really closely with him to kind of develop a new structure where the young minds could push their ideas forward in Nintendo.
It's kind of interesting, like this contrast between the way that this presidency came about versus all the presidents beforehand, because before Iwata, the presidency at Nintendo was exclusively in the Yamauchi family, and then Mr. Yamauchi, before he stepped down, blew everybody's minds by making his successor someone who was outside of the family, and that being Satoru Iwata, who was a developer, a programmer. This guy made games, and he made him the president of the company. And we're going from that. Choice. We're going from that to Kimishima, who is very much a business mind, who is definitely transferring that power to someone who is more like-minded in that regard. But the additional thing with that is that Furukawa grew up playing Nintendo games. This is this is a thing that he's a fan of. So there's like an interesting mix of business and passion at the same time, and that's really exciting for this new president.
John in the chat says the boat doesn't look likely to hit anything soon, and I think he's absolutely right. One of the interesting things about Furukawa that you read like his background, and he worked, I think, with Nintendo of Germany. And so in the back of my head, when I read that, I'm like, it's a really interesting perspective that they're putting in charge here. This is a guy that's worked with the other branches of Nintendo. And then one of the articles that you sent us about this, they explicitly state that is one of the reasons why they chose him, is because this is a person that has experience outside of just the Japanese headquarters. This is a person who's worked with other branches.
That's definitely like something in Nintendo's history that I think has plagued them. They've never been like completely aware things that are like necessary in the other markets that are not Japan. You look at a lot of the decisions made in a game like Splatoon, despite being made by young developers, that is a very Japanese game, and just like in the mechanics and the way the online functions, that it's very Japanese. So it'll be very nice to have Furukawa here and kind of show those other perspectives, and at the head of the company too. So that'll trickle down to the people below him, and maybe we'll see Nintendo do some things that are like even more left field for Nintendo than doing something completely ridiculous. So like, you think Labo's left field? I think it's even more left field for them to do something more traditional to like the Western games market. And I could totally see that happening under Furukawa going forward. We've already seen Nintendo switching. We've already seen like Nintendo Switch adopt a lot of third-party games that are Western developed or you know, not made in Japan, and they're retaining the aspects of the games that made them so unique. So like, you have the gore and the violence, but also the adventuring in a game like Doom, the online multiplayer in a game like Payday 2. These are never games I would have expected on Wii U, but yet here they are on Nintendo Switch.
I'm really interested to see how that shift will happen and what kind of changes we'll see through all of this. If we'll see a lot more communication between the different branches, and just imagining the potential of what they could output with that, you know?
It's pretty amazing when you think about it, because even leading up to this, like for the past probably decade, or maybe even before that, Nintendo of America, the Treehouse, makes like weekly trips to Japan to have one-on-one conversations with developers to discuss game development. That was already happening before like we even got to this point. So I'm wondering like if that's going to evolve in a way that we wouldn't expect. Maybe some of those localization team members will move to Japan and work right there, and there'll be that 100% time collaboration effort.
Do you guys know what this means?
What?
This means we're finally getting F-Zero. That's
I knew you were going to say that. I wanted to like just say we're getting F-Zero, but I wasn't sure.
We're gonna get like GTA on steroids. That's what we're gonna get. That's what I'm predicting. We're gonna get open world F-Zero.
I kind of want to see the opposite of what you were talking about. I'd like to see some of the Japanese developers come here and take notes from the American teams, and actually just kind of jump around and talk to all of their different localization teams. And what do you want to see? What do you think?
That'd be interesting. You know, that's not something I'd expect, because most of Nintendo's development obviously is at their headquarters, and they have like an R&D building that's like right down the street from their main headquarters in Japan. So by and large, everything they do is there. But like if we had some Japanese developers take like a 2-3 week excursion to the Treehouse and just like really grind out some good details and just figure some things out, get some better perspective, we could see some really neat things happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, really, honestly, we're moving towards, what you might call a global culture, and Nintendo having developers or second-party developers in the West and in the East. I mean, it just makes sense that they would be communicating in some way, shape, or form. That a lot of these younger Japanese developers are playing westernized games on their PS4s and their Switches, and they're playing God of War. They're playing other Sony games as well. So they're getting a lot of this. They're you see it, and you see how Japanese games have become a little bit more Western, and then I think you can kind of see the Eastern influence in some of Western games nowadays.
You know, there's that big conversation about God of War being influenced by Metroid that we talked about last week, and I think that's a definite example of that. But I think it... overall, game design is game design. Good game design is good game design. Obviously, there are differences between cultures, and that's just, it comes from a different way of thinking. So it's going to be incredible to see like how the two merge going forward.
Definitely.
So are you guys happy with this shift? Is this exciting to you?
Yeah, I think it's pretty exciting, especially again for how young he is. Like, let's think about this. Like, I'm 24, right? And in 1994, I was 0. Okay,
F-Zero.
At this point, Furukawa was 22. if he's 46 now, he's 22. That means when like that NES came out, yeah, that was in, what was that, 85, 86?
I think it was 85.
Yeah. So minus another 9 years from that, and you're looking at, he's 13 when the NES came out. So when we're saying that he has grown up with some of these games, like, it checks out. He was that kind of age when, you know, he'd be into the NES games when that was right coming out. And so, like, he was there at the forefront of, like, game design. And, you know, I think that gives him some perspective that some older generations don't have, because they were already older. They were past the games of that time. And then us, who were born, like, I want to say, like, the year I was born. When did the N64 come out?
96, I think.
Yeah, I was 2 years old when the N64 came out. So it'll be interesting to see how this moves forward. And it's Kimishima has, you know, faith in him as a business person taking over as a CEO and president. I'd say we gotta. I'd bet pretty high on this one.
Yeah. At first, I wasn't too keen on the idea, but the more they've talked about like the reasons behind it and how they made their selection, gives me a lot more faith in Furukawa and his ability to lead Nintendo into this new era.
Yeah, you know, he talks about his goals for Nintendo, and he mentions here in a quote that he wants to have one-on-one conversations with multiple people in the company and kind of drive that conversation and not run Nintendo by himself. I feel like that's something that Iwata had already been doing. And I think the same is true, just like, you know, there's kind of a generic statement here. He says his highest priority task right now is to accelerate the momentum behind Nintendo Switch and to expand the business, including the smartphone business. Iwata, you know, technically Iwata pioneered all that. Iwata was heavily involved, like, in the development of Nintendo Switch. Unfortunately, he passed away before he got to see the fruits of his labor. And
one of the things that they mentioned specifically was that part of the change in the structure of Nintendo that they've been working on is putting like the chain of command a little bit more even.
Yeah.
So rather than having to like or have all these decisions rise up to the top to the president to make, they're trying to make it so that, you know, hey, you're making a decision about art, talk to someone who, you know, knows art. You know, you got a decision about music, talk to someone who knows about music. Have these different people, these different experts making these decisions.
Yeah, it seems like, if I understood it correctly, that they were just kind of like allowing people down the line make bigger decisions. And so kind of like the CEO has to do less of that, and the CEO can focus on doing what a CEO is supposed to do. But then he also, you know, somebody who leads any sort of organization, company, or whatever it is, you know, if you can recognize the strengths of those below you, that's how you're a good leader. You know, you're able to delegate those responsibilities instead of just trying to do it all yourself. So it sounds like, from a business standpoint, you know, Nintendo is definitely headed in a good direction. And so I couldn't be more excited about that aspect.
And furthering his comments about his goals, he also briefly brought up the theme parks, movie projects, and just like the other ways they're going to use their IP. This is all the brainchild of Iwata and, you know, the people he discussed this with before he passed away. So it's cool to see that Furukawa is adopting what Iwata had, you know, set the stage for, but that he's also going to bring his own talents and his own ideas to the table.
Diversify.
So with that, I think we're all pretty excited about Furukawa taking over. I believe it's a couple months from now before he takes over. Is that right? It's not.
I think they said about E3.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. It's not quite in place, but he's on his way. He's on his way.
One thing I've been wondering about, and we discussed this a little bit before, is how involved is Furukawa going to be, like as far as Nintendo Directs and making public appearances? Because Iwata was definitely like incredibly special in that regard.
Yeah,
his fans were like a family to him, and he'd show up with every Nintendo Direct and talk directly to you. Right now, we kind of have Koizumi in that role, and I like Koizumi a lot. He's got a great like stage presence about him. That very first time we saw him live was the Nintendo Switch presentation, and he was a magician. He showed us Joy-Cons and that they had ice cubes inside of them, and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. The last couple Nintendo Directs he's done, I think he did a great job. Definitely kept us engaged.
I don't necessarily want to see him go, but I definitely want to see more of the president and get addressed by him and actually get a sense for him.
Yeah.
'Cause that's the amazing thing about Iwata is we knew Iwata. We spent so much time listening to him tell us about all these things we had to look forward to. And, just a very special connection to that man, which made it hurt, when he passed.
Quick comment from
relationship.
A quick comment from Dream Drop Sora. He says, "Hey guys, it's pretty interesting to see how each CEO molds Nintendo. Iwata ran a very friendly and light Nintendo, and Kimishima has set a more contemporary company. Will Furukawa further this? I have a feeling like he's going to strike a more delicate balance between the two. Kimishima, I imagine, never like put himself out there because he knew he wasn't going to be there forever. He didn't want people getting attached to him as a president if he knew like he wasn't there in the long term. So I think Furukawa fits the bill a little bit better because he's the permanent president, and I do think we'll see him appear in Nintendo Directs. Maybe not for like the whole presentation, the same thing happens with Reggie. Reggie will like show up at the end of a Direct sometimes with a special game announcement. He typically shows up for Zelda because, as you know, Reggie's favorite game series is Zelda. And I imagine that'll happen.
I say let's think about it another way, okay? Let's say this guy, he grows up playing Nintendo games, and now he is in a position where he is going to be the president and CEO of Nintendo. Why would you not? Why would you not appear in those videos? I'd be like, oh, heck yeah, even if it's just for a little bit. Time for me to make an appearance. Hey, everybody, it's me. I do Nintendo now.
I do
you
Nintendo.
You all have to listen to me. And all these guys are going to tell you about all these cool things we're doing. So
I hope we get like the Japanese equivalent of Reggie, just a huge Nintendo dork that just shows up and just magical.
He needs to spawn his own set of memes. Exactly. Like Reggie's got his selection of memes. Iwata had his own special set of memes. The direct symbol, the bananas, which to this day, like we still don't know why he did that, but it was amazing. So yeah, I think Furukawa will strike a delicate balance between the two. He definitely seems like he's a business mind first. I do think that's something Nintendo needs. Iwata, like we said before, he was a programmer, he was a game developer first, and not a... Well, I don't want to say he was not a leader, but he was not a businessman per se. But he was a natural leader from what it sounds like. Any other comments on Furukawa before we have to move on?
No.
I want to know if he runs a bakery.
Comments.
We're going to send our energy to Furukawa and hope that he has a very great presidency at Nintendo. We look forward to seeing what you got for us. So, oh, and also great job, Kimishima. It was great having you for the last 2.5 years.
Bye, Dad.
Kimishima.
Gone but never forgotten.
Before we move into the main breakdown segment, we should talk Final Space. We're going to get this out of the way first.
What?
So, Final Space premiered its final episode of its 10-episode season on Monday, and it did not end at all like I expected it to.
It wasn't happy. It wasn't rainbows and lollipop.
No. Spoilers
ahead. It's
ahead.
also not over yet.
It's not over yet, but spoilers ahead for those of you who haven't watched. So at the end, we have a final confrontation between Gary and his crew and the Lord Commander and I guess his crew and the rift in time and space that is opening to Final Space. Really cool action set piece, by the way. Just like this was a very epic episode in that regard. They toned the humor down quite a bit. Like there was only a few moments where they brought it out.
Why am I not laughing?
There's one laugh that I really got a kick out of. Like we have this emotional death for Kevin, and then Gary walks up to the window and he's like, "I'm so happy."
It's like joy, tears of joy.
Oh my god!
They definitely played with expectation on that one.
I thought he was actually gonna feel for Kevin for the first time.
Oh, definitely. Like that's exactly what I was expecting.
No,
and then
he
they
like
show that shot of his face, and it's like,
Kevin.
Oh
that
my god!
Moment was just so well played.
Yeah, it was pretty great. Animation was really on point here. A lot of use of 3D, lots of shadows in contrast with light. That was pretty neat. The tone of this episode, man, it was heavy.
That's definitely not something I was expecting from the series as like a whole. I was expecting something very lighthearted and just fun, and it dials it up when it needs to.
It exists on both polar extremes. You have extreme drama and extreme ridiculousness, but they somehow coexist in this beautiful mess of a show.
I think it only works in like a sci-fi show, you know? Like for some reason, like you can just like, oh look, Gary lost his arm in like the first episode. Oh well, I'll just give you a robot arm, you know? Like it only can exist because it is sci-fi and it's a cartoon, you know?
Yeah.
That's why shows like Futurama are so great, you know? It's the same kind of deal.
So like you have funny moments like that with Kevin, and then a very real moment that you know, I clung to a little bit. When you have Gary and Hugh crash into the Lord Commander's ship, and Gary thinks he's lost Hugh, and he was like legitimately upset about this. At the beginning of the series, he and Hugh didn't exactly get along, but there's like this incredible bond between like Gary and an AI that I really love. So like,
I mean, to be fair, that the AI is actually one of my favorite characters.
He's one of the best characters in the show.
He's so dry, but he says like the most ridiculous stuff. It's amazing. Just the juxtaposition of it.
He's like a new dad for Gary. But when Gary thinks he's lost him, he gets really panicky. But then Hugh uploads himself to Gary's helmet, just in the nick of time. We have
Dad.
Quinn ultimately decide that she's going to take the bomb into the rift, and I was surprised at that, actually. I thought that they would actually have Gary go ahead and do that, you know, because we have that scene with his dad in episode 9.
I thought he was going to do the exact same thing that his dad did.
That's the anticipation, but no, again, they subvert expectations and they have Quinn do it. When that sets an expectation for the next season, which is exciting. But ultimately, it comes down to the Lord Commander capturing Mooncake and using his power to open the portal to final space. And he thought he was going to get taken in and turned into a Titan like the rest of the Titans there, but instead they take planet Earth, the entire planet.
Got him.
So the entire planet is taken into final space. Right afterwards, Quinn manages to set the bomb off and close the rift to final space. And at which point we lose overall connection with her. We don't know her current state and what's going on that side of things.
Oh, she's dead.
We love you too, by the way.
She's definitely dead.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, his father died doing the exact same thing, so that's the one thought you'd have first. So we have Quinn, who's potentially dead. Kevin is dead. Lil Kato is kind of left uncertain.
I'm going to guess he's in the exact same position that Gary himself was in, where he's running out of oxygen.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite as fast as him, because I don't think he had any damage to his suit, but he's just floating in space, so...
Wouldn't that be something
he was running out of oxygen? I thought they were just waiting for the cookies to be done.
Wouldn't it be something if they also kill off Lil Kato?
I hope they don't. He's the leader of the resistance.
But to do that to Avocado, a character that we lose very early on in the show, and then to do it to the only other character connected to him.
that would do the exact same thing that like was about to break my heart when they killed off Avocado himself.
You know,
and I'm like, don't kill the freaking kid. Don't you dare kill the kid. And they killed his dad.
If they did that, I imagine this show will get much darker before the end. It'll just like keep going down this hole, and we're like, when are they going to stop? And then we just don't know that it has no bottom.
And then we have that. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
There's one very important character that I hope really isn't dead. Trifold, the leader of the Resistance.
Trifold, man, he came out of nowhere, but he's the dumbest so good.
It was so dumb.
Is he also voiced by Olin Rogers? I think he is.
I believe so. What?
I loved it.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I love it when they like find or like they pick up the bomb and him and Trifold are there together. Just hearing them talk back and forth was kind of hilarious to me. Because the voices are close enough that you can tell, like when they're in the same scene.
I mean, did you guys see the interview with Olin at the end of that episode where he talks about like, I was just gonna forget about him, but
he was popular.
The audience liked him for some reason, so he just kept.
Yeah, I love that it was reactive in that way to keep Trifold as a character. Yeah. So I hope Trifold's doing okay. I hope everyone's doing okay. We get to, ultimately, the Lord Commander and Mooncake get away. Gary is left floating in space, which is how every episode until here began. 10 minutes, with 1 minute passing with each episode before he runs out of air. So the cookies get finished, and the air from Gary's life leaves him. He sees his dad in a vision, and his dad's like, I'm here to give you two choices. You can either go back with me, or you can go back and do the things you need to do. And we're left before we see Gary make that final decision. We hear,
Where's Quinn?
Where's Quinn? We hear Hugh say goodbye to Gary, and that it was a pleasure knowing him. That really hit me. And you just see him floating in space for like the last 10 seconds of the show. I could see the Hulu counter, or I mean the TBS counter going down to 0, and I was like, are we not, is that it? And at the very last second, a beam of light, and then it's over. That's the end of the episode.
Yep. So we assume that he has been rescued.
But we don't know by who, because everyone like that Gary is friends with, for the most part, was there, right?
Well, we're missing one. Future Hot Quinn.
Oh yeah, Future Quinn. It could be Future
also
Quinn.
Avocado. We're missing Avocado.
Don't talk about Avocado in my house.
I don't think he's dead.
Maybe he's alive. That'd be an awesome.
I don't think he's dead.
Awesome twist.
That'd be a really nice twist.
I loved Avocado, and I don't want to see him go. He and Gary did the clasp of friends. You don't just kill off a character after you do the clasp of friends.
It's not okay.
Which is a reference from an old Olin Rogers video. You should definitely watch his YouTube channel if you're into the show. There is just so much that is just thrown into the script, and you wouldn't know otherwise. Clasp of Friends being one of them. I think this was a great finale. It left a lot of questions. We know that season 2 is on the way at some point. I'm very excited to see that come back. And the fact that it's like 10 episodes, so it's like it's a very short experience, but that makes it feel more like an event than a season.
Yeah.
And also, I feel better about shorter seasons because a lot of the times that means they know exactly how much they want to get done. And they don't have to have 26 episodes to do it, you know?
And this show is definitely proves that.
Yeah, and the content that's going to be there is going to be generally more solid than if they were just trying to cram like a ton of episodes into any given season.
So well, I guess I should ask you guys, did you like the finale?
Yes.
It was, yes, but it was weird because it felt really different.
It hurt my heart.
Most of the other episodes because of, it was a lot more serious and darker, and we were getting to that finale, and nobody was knowing like, oh, if it ends now, then like the show's over, whatever. But then obviously they were like, we want a second season, so we're gonna.
There's a lot of world building that we don't know. Like we don't know a lot about Final Space, and obviously we found out there's other spaces that exist, like inner space. So I imagine Olin is gonna want. I imagine Olin has more stories to tell about this world and some things that, you know, we're not completely familiar with. We've only seen a couple glimpses of planet Earth. I imagine if planet Earth actually gets rescued, we might get an idea of what life on Earth was like, because we don't really know.
Outside the bar at the beginning.
Yeah. That's,
when they return to it.
When they're back on Earth again, that's like the place we go to, is the bar. So
I love how that dude was still in the bathroom stall. And he was still alive.
The Krylenol.
We have that flashback, and Gary's like, "You're a good guy, Gary. You're a jerk, Gary. You're a jerk." I love how outlandish Gary's character is. Like, he says things with such intensity, just like the littlest things with such intensity. He's very endearing, and he makes a great protagonist. Olin does a great job voicing the character. Hopefully season 2 is closer than it sounds like, because as of right now, there's like no information on that from what I understand.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really cool to see a season 2, like, you know, like what if it was only like a 6-month wait between season 1 and season 2?
That'd be nice.
You know? Like maybe they're like, okay, we did our 10 episodes. We're already working on the next 10 episodes, and then they churn them out a little faster, but they give them in smaller drops, you know?
They're supposed to be doing the Lion's Blaze, and I wasn't sure if that was a TBS show. I wonder how that's going to impact the wait between season 1 and season 2.
Yeah, I don't know if like Lion's Blaze is going to come before season 2 of Final Space. And if it does, that's fine, because I'm excited for that show just as much as I was for Final Space. I'm just excited to see what Olin cranks out, because obviously he's got a talent for this. It's nice to see that finally recognized, like on a broadcast scale. So that's pretty cool for Olin. Great job, Olin. Your season 1 of Final Space, I think it's a solid, like, I don't know, like an A- for me right now, because I think I agree with you, Logan. Maybe a little bit more lightheartedness in that last episode, but they had to bring it at the same time.
Right. I mean, I think ultimately whatever they do with that going forward, that matters. If they like did it and then they don't like capitalize on it, what the heck was the point?
Yeah.
So I think it really depends on what comes after.
So I'm excited for season 2. I imagine you guys are as well.
Born ready.
And that was Final Space. So with that, we're going into the breakdown segment of the show. We're going to talk about the movies, TV, anime, video games, all that stuff that we did over the last week. We're going to start off with movies and TV. We just talked about Final Space, so you can check that off the list.
Check.
A movie I saw 2 weeks ago that I forgot to talk about last week because I didn't write it down. I saw Isle of Dogs.
Isle of Dogs? What's Isle of Dogs, Brandon? Tell us about Isle of Dogs.
Isle of Dogs is a stop-motion animation motion picture about dogs that are banished to an island.
Directed by who?
Wes Anderson.
I can't believe you didn't lead with that. It's a Wes Anderson film.
Details, man. They don't matter.
Wait. All you have to do is say Wes Anderson. Go watch it. Oh, come on.
He's not that good.
I'm kidding. And it's bleeding with his personality and his style. Like, it's all over this movie. It's pretty cool. This movie takes place in Japan. Japan has like this big like disease epidemic, and the dogs are involved, so they banish the dogs to an island, ultimately in the end hoping to just, you know, get rid of them altogether. The current like lord has like an obsession with cats. There was like this big battle in like ancient Japan between cat lovers and dog lovers. The dog lovers, I think, if I remember correctly, they won, but the cat lovers were still angry about it. That's all the backstory you get. But there's one young character who I believe is the nephew of the current lord, who steals a plane and crash lands on the Isle of Dogs in search of his dog Spots. And he meets up with a ragtag group of dogs, and the dogs can talk, and they're voiced by celebrity voices. I'm going to get more into that in a second here, but he shows them a picture of his dog Spots, and they're like, oh man, this guy's looking for his dog. Maybe humans do care, so they help him search for his dog Spots, and that's basically the adventure you go on with the movie. This movie does a lot of cool things stylistically. So at the beginning of the movie, they're like, a lot of our characters speak in Japanese, and they will be translated. But they're never translated like with just flat out subtitles. These subtitles are integrated into the diorama of the actual compositions. So like everything is shown from like a diorama perspective in the movie. There's like whenever the Lord is talking like in front of his committee or whatever, or in front of the people, there will be a translator for Americans like on a TV like in the control room that you can see, and she'll be translating him live, or you'll see the script that he's reading just like on screen. They find really creative ways to actually translate these characters without like ever having actual subtitles on the screen. It's incredible.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah.
They also do a really...
That's like such a Wes Anderson thing to do, too.
He takes it further, though. Like, that's not even the end of it. Everything in this movie is labeled with its name on it. Everything. Dogs, humans. There's a scene like where there's a plane with a black box on it, and it's labeled with a black box on it. You always know what everything and everyone is. Like, the main character's name is Atari, and like when he first shows up, Atari is like on his chest, like on his outfit. It's on his helmet and a couple other places. And I was like, man, this guy really likes Atari. And no, it's his name. And I never forgot it after that. They do that with, they do that with the dog tags. It's super cool. And like I noticed it early on in the movie, and I was like, this is really inventive, really creative. And for the rest of the movie, I was just looking for stuff like that. So that's the other thing, is the majority of the humans speak Japanese, so you can't understand them outright. All of the dogs speak English.
Unless you speak Japanese, duh.
Got him.
But all the dogs speak English. And I'm pretty sure that's true for, like, both the release here and the release in Japan.
So they probably found another way to just put maybe subtitles onto it or something like that.
Yeah, so like you can watch this movie knowing either language, and I think you'd have an equal amount of enjoyment out of it.
Right,
They just do some really neat stuff. The animation is super cool. It always looks nice. Like I said, it's always from that diorama perspective. So from a visual standpoint, it's there. I've never seen a movie quite like it. But probably,
dang, I really like Wes Anderson, so I need to...
If you're a Wes Anderson fan, it's a crime to have not seen this movie. So like, find your chance, go check it out. I used my movie pass to see it, so I didn't have to pay for it. It was awesome. That's like an easy like 10 out of 10 movie for me. I would definitely watch that again.
Okay.
It's not like going to be super groundbreaking or anything from a story perspective. It's just a fun movie. It's inventive. It's pretty to look at. So that's my spiel on Isle of Dogs, and that's all I watched this week.
That's it? That's all you watch?
I know Paul watched a lot of stuff.
I only have so much time, man.
Oh,
you on my level? Okay. I don't even know where to start. I got a lot of movies. If you're on a Discord server, you probably saw that whole ordeal unfold. People kept recommending me movies, and I kept buying them. And so I got back last weekend, and I just kind of, well, I should watch these movies that I bought. And so I just started at the top of the list and moved down. So I guess first, this is Logan's been waiting for this moment, but I finally sat down and watched Call Me by Your Name.
Call Me by Your Name.
Is this like the third time on the show we've talked about this movie now?
Yes,
probably.
I mean, we talked about every time. All I can
really add to the conversation we've had is that it's a very interesting film, in that it's a very like, there's a lot of intimate moments that you're just kind of sitting just outside of and observing, and it's a very like delicately shot film. Whoever the cinematographer for that movie is just brilliant. I absolutely adored his work. Everything was just so very carefully shot.
Yeah, and it was Paul's favorite movie that he watched this week, right, Paul?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you agree that movie.
You know what? Like, it was so number one. It was number one on the list of movies that I'm glad I didn't watch with my family.
Oh, there you go.
Don't worry, Logan. I'll get to it.
What are you gonna get to? Oh, watching.
Call Me by Your Name. And then we'll talk about it another time.
4 times on the show.
I mean, we've talked about it quite a bit, so I'm just going to move on to the next movie. Keep this train rolling because I got a lot. One of Dylan's recommendations in our Discord server was the Florida Project, and it takes place at this kind of rundown motel that's on the highway to Disney in Florida, and you're following these kids in this rundown motel that people are renting by the month or by the week, and it's not idyllic. You can tell these kids are they have way more experience on the streets than like a kid their age should, because I want to say they're probably like 8. They're really, really young, tiny kids. And so it's kind of like Call Me by Your Name in the respect that like you're kind of just outside of all of these small moments, just kind of observing. And it's a very rich environment, I guess. A lot of really great characters that are kind of struggling to understand each other, and being able to kind of witness this really small scale story unfold is just really nice. Also a little bit heartbreaking. And the way it ends is a very, like, I'm still trying to understand it, and having read a little bit about it, I'm finally starting to get a good grasp on what exactly was happening, because it just kind of ended in a very weird, unexpected way.
Right.
Like from what they were leading up to, and then how they ended it, like last shot was So that's a Florida Project. It's an interesting movie.
Okay.
So I also watched Shape of Water.
Ooh,
that's been
a good
on
one.
my list before anyone even recommended it to me, just because of how many awards it was up for this year, and the fact that it just won Best Picture.
Yeah, it had a lot going for it.
It's a very pleasant movie. Very, like, it's set in, I want to say, like the 50s, 60s.
Yeah. It feels like, in a lot of ways, it feels like a Harry Potter movie for grown-ups.
Like on an atmospheric level?
Yeah, it feels very, like, fantastical, and even, I would argue, like, Disney-esque in its mannerisms.
Except for a few shots.
Like, obviously, it's a lot more adult and it's a lot more serious, but it's like, what happens if a Disney film grew up? That's
it's kind of like
Disney
Beauty and the Beast.
Right.
If it was told in like a different way.
Ducky,
I want to say
that's
pretty
pretty
close to the same moral of the story, but not.
Ducky in the chat says it was pretty good.
Yes, sir. It's a good film. So
if you're looking for something to do,
you should watch it.
Shape of Water is a good movie.
All right, let's keep the train rolling, boys.
So another Dylan recommendation was Captain Fantastic. And I watched this last night, and I really, really enjoyed myself. It stars Viggo Mortensen, and he plays a father of 6 kids. He's training his children to become like survival experts. In one particular like scene, he puts his kids up versus I think his like sister, her kids, and like the question was, what's the Bill of Rights? And you could tell that both of her kids had no clue. And then he calls his one of his youngest kids in and asks the same thing. And his kid could actually like recite all of the Bill of Rights. There's one shot where they're like climbing up a mountain.
I had to do that in middle school.
Training. And one of the kids like slips and almost breaks his wrists. And he just tells him, no one's coming to save you. You man up. You gotta finish this climb. In the apocalypse, no one's gonna save you, because that's just the kind of father he is. And it was a very interesting dynamic. I really got attached to all these characters, and
I'm reminded of like some of the tweets I see Ryan Reynolds tweet out about his kid.
If Ryan Reynolds was actually like dead set serious when he said that, that would be this movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
The movie actually, like, it has a lot richer of a plot than this, because in the very beginning, the kid's mother dies, and so he's taking his kids out into the world for like the first time, and you're having to see them adapt to this really like foreign world to them, because their whole life was being raised in the mountain, reading books and training for the apocalypse and crazy stuff.
They're Gohan. Both of them are Gohan.
Exactly. All 6 of them are Gohan.
Oh, okay. All 6 of them are Gohan.
I mean, their main mode of transportation is they're driving around in a school bus.
I thought you were going to say flying on a cloud.
That would be so much better.
Paul, where can you watch this?
Well, I bought it on Blu-ray on Amazon. It was like $13, so it's not, all things considered, that expensive.
Okay.
I'm sure you can find it on a few
it
other
is
places.
Included with Amazon Prime Video if you have that.
Well, hey there.
I'm a lucky boy then.
Yep, I just looked it up. I was like, oh, hey, I
You should watch
purchased
this.
an annual subscription for Prime. So, yeah. That's
You're all
awesome.
set. Go watch that tonight.
I have my legal way of streaming this movie.
I think of the list that I watched today, that was probably my favorite of all the movies this week. But I did have one more movie. I decided I've finished my collection of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so I have all the movies now on Blu-ray, and I decided that I want to sit down and kind of start from the very beginning and watch all these again and see, now that we've been at it for 10 years, how these early movies that I haven't really seen in years, how they change, especially with the context of knowing where this whole universe goes. And I actually made a pretty interesting revelation, I think, during Iron Man. And that's that if you look at the main villain, Obadiah, his armor, I think that really went on to lead the design for the Hulkbuster armor. You have this very, like, if you threw the Iron Man colors on that suit, it'd be pretty darn close to what the Hulkbuster eventually came up to be.
Yeah, Marvel Cinematic Universe is like rich with like tiny details like that.
That's something that like I would have never even thought about. But now having like watched those movies with the Hulkbuster armor and go back to watch it, it's like, oh hey, I've seen this before. And it didn't work quite that well going the other way. I think also too, like the interesting thing about Iron Man is that back when that movie first came out, the first few times I watched it, post-credit scenes weren't really that traditional. And so I actually didn't even realize there was one in that. And so I actually
that's the
had
one
to
where Nick
stop.
Fury shows up, right?
Yeah, I don't think I saw that like all the times I watched it up until now.
Yeah,
But I had to stop and be like, oh hey, this is a Marvel movie. Credits scene.
Yeah, the Incredible Hulk has one too, and Tony Stark actually appears in it.
Yeah, I remember that one. But actually, the first one I really remember when I was like, oh, wow, this is the thing that they do, is when we got to the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the 2 post-credit scenes after the Avengers. And then I specifically remember the one where they're just like sitting down
Shawarma.
in this restaurant, eating shawarma.
I love that
And like
scene.
there's a lady just sweeping up debris from like the huge battle they just had, and they're all dirty and stuff, and they're just getting this,
They're like so detached.
Mediterranean food.
The interesting thing about that is I actually remember it being a very like lively conversation, and then I went back and watched it before we went to go see Infinity War, and I'm like, oh, they are not talking.
Yeah, it's so
It's
dead.
a very
It's so
like
funny.
awkward and silent scene.
Yeah, they're definitely tired. They just want to eat and go home. Then the other one was like the first time we see Thanos
Yeah.
in Avengers. It's neat too because that post-credit scene, the dialogue makes reference to like comic Thanos's desire to like court death, because Death is portrayed as a woman, and he's fascinated with her. They make reference to that in the dialogue for that post-credit scene, and here we are in Infinity War, and there's like no mention of any of that yet. So I'm wondering if that was just a reference or if we're actually leading up to something.
I never knew that he was into death. He's gonna have some competition with Deadpool.
That's his actual goal in the comics, like more so than what he did in the movie.
I wonder who she ends up with.
Any other comments from you, Paul, on your movies?
Nope, that was it for this week.
Logan, I see you didn't really watch anything, or did you just not write anything down?
I I didn't really watch.
How much Futurama did you watch?
I didn't actually. I mean, I think most of the stuff I watched.
You just thought you had him pinned.
No, I think I've gotten such in the swing of watching some of these weekly shows. I forget that I watch them, except when they're on. Then I was like, oh crap, you know. So it doesn't feel like anything to talk about. Like, they had the season finale for Last Man on Earth, so that ended off pretty well, and that was really exciting. You guys should watch it because it's super good. And
where can we watch it?
You can watch it on Hulu or on
hey,
Fox.
I got that now.
Yeah. So they post all the most recent episodes on Hulu like a day or two after they actually air.
I should mention, Logan, my wife has been watching New Girl.
Yes. I have a few episodes to catch up, but I have started watching latest and last season that is currently airing. So I might end up talking about that a lot, especially if it turns out pretty good, because I feel like the last half of season 6 was falling off. So when I heard that they were like the last season, I was like, good.
This is the time.
I think they can sustain, right? So if they're like, okay, if we're planning to wrap it up on a season, then I think they can have a really solid season. So that's what they're doing. I'm glad that it's happening. It's been a long time coming. It's a show that I've been following for quite some time now. I'm glad it's not overstaying its welcome.
Michaela says in the chat that she's enjoyed New Girl. Yes, you have.
It is fantastic.
Super good.
So with that, we'll swing over into anime. Right out of the gate, Paul, you and I, Shokugeki. This show's just good.
Good show.
I mean, if you're not watching Shokugeki and you're into shonen,
Logan.
Yeah, I basically watch it every day when I cook.
Yeah, we're pretty much just like calling Logan a loser for not watching Shokugeki.
Because he is.
I do think Shokugeki's running a little weaker these days than it did at the beginning, but it's still good. And
I don't think they're packing as much into each episode, but I still thought like that last episode was pretty darn good.
Yeah, well, season 2 was also rushed a lot. They cut out a lot of manga content in that season. So it's still good. The character arc we're experiencing right now is really refreshing. I can't wait to see where it goes. So
absolutely
watch Shokugeki. You're gonna enjoy
Food
yourself.
Wars, more like poop wars. Got him.
All right, we'll talk about an anime you do like then, and that's My Hero Academia.
My Hero Academia was good. So episode 4 was freaking lit. It was so good.
It was really good.
It made me feel some type of way.
The first 3 episodes of the third season were like, oh, this is pretty standard. And then it got lit real quick. All for one times a million. All for one times 1 million.
I was
thinking like 1,000 maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. But while I was watching that, I couldn't help but remember Goku and Vegeta's Kamehameha Gallic Gun showdown at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. And Goku goes, you know, he's doing Kaioken times 3, and then the way he ultimately overcomes Vegeta is Kaioken times 4. He just brings it up one notch. But Midoriya, man, he just blew it out of the water. Jesus.
Yeah, it's like he was like, how much I actually see how I can do that, and then let's pump that up by like a lot more. And then that's
really interesting moment, just because like you expect 100% to be like, yeah, it'll break his arm, but it's All Might's quirk. It's the exact same power as All Might, so 100% of All Might's power should do this, and then it doesn't. And so he pushes so much further beyond that.
We also had that flash of colors that at this point I believe represents the previous owners of One for All. And I'm wondering, like, if 100% is not actually 100%, and the 1,000,000% was actually the powers of the other ones being applied to One for All.
Yeah, because like it like brings the essence of its past users into the next generation, and All for One like becomes more powerful with each passing generation.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you know, whatever Midoriya is going to get, Deku is going to get, he's eventually going to outshine All Might. You know, that's just like, it's a given. They give you that information right from the start, you know?
If we learned anything from this episode, All for One is a crazy quirk.
I'm assuming like what we're seeing with Midoriya right now is this show's equivalent to your Super Saiyan or your first and second gear, like with One Piece.
Unlocking the Demon Fox.
Yeah, every one of these shows just like has that transformation, and I think that's what we're seeing here. I wonder how much that will evolve.
Very good, like we're having some Naruto moments there, which is why
we were having some heavy Naruto moments. Like this is a successor to Naruto. They're like, I see what you did, I'm gonna do it better.
You should have ended that whole thing with "Believe it."
Oh my god, and like Logan, before I'd seen it, you were like, they brought new meaning to the title My Hero Academia, and at the end, Kota's like, my hero, and I was like, yep, I'm crying.
There was tears shed. There was tears shed. Yeah, they really drive in like, okay, why is this show called My Hero Academia? And they really sell it on this one. They're like, oh, it took us a little over
2.5 years
to actually get to that point. But we're here where we are at, and I obviously feel a little bit spoiled because I just got to binge the first 2 seasons when the 3rd season had just started. It
was the same for me, but I was a little sooner than you. And then Paul, you've been sitting on season 1 for basically since it came out.
Time. And I'd saved the season 2 until it was all done, but I think I watched it pretty close to when like the finale for season 2 was. Cause I've been sitting waiting for season 3 for a while, being hyped.
That's kind of the game I've been playing with Boruto. For those of you who don't know, Boruto for the last, it's peaked over 1 year now since it premiered. It's finally covering the plot of the Boruto movie that we got years ago.
How many times have we experienced that story now? How many different ways have we had that told?
We've had the video game, the movie.
The video game, the manga, now the anime. That's 4 retellings of this one event. Give me something different.
They didn't retell the story of Naruto, or the last Naruto, the movie. They didn't tell us that. Why do we have to have this for the film? The film is there. It's canon. It exists as it does. I had the same issue with Battle of Gods and Resurrection F being recovered in Dragon Ball Super. If that happens again with the new movie, I'm going to be upset.
I would have much rather the anime take place after the movie.
What?
Just
why
start
not?
Fresh.
Why wouldn't you do that? I understand that there's going to be people who don't watch the show or the movies, but like
the only thing I could guess is that they were waiting for manga to get further along. If they're even following, I don't think that's their where they're going with it.
I don't know if it's even going to like cover the manga, though. The very first episode eludes
the same thing, right?
Eludes the exact same thing, like shot for shot, that the beginning of the manga did. So there's reason to believe it probably follows the manga. I'm not going to read the manga for this one. I'm just going to sit on the anime for the rest of the series.
The manga goes like 1 new chapter a month, and it's not like it's the 50-page chapters that we were originally getting when Naruto started. It's still like the 20-ish page that we're getting towards the end of it.
Yeah.
So going from like 1 a week to once a month, I keep forgetting it's a thing. I keep forgetting to go back and watch it because it's not like part of a weekly routine. And
yeah,
how am I supposed to remember something you only do once?
I'm beyond the point where I'm going to follow the manga. I think the anime is a lot more interesting. The character moments in the anime always hit a lot harder because you have the music and the composition backing you up, as well as the voice acting. So for me, I think that's the way I'm going to go from now on.
I don't think I'm going to even watch the anime for it. I'm probably gonna, when I get through the dub of part 1 and part 2 of Naruto, then I might consider watching Boruto anime.
The part 2 dub is like currently in the middle of like filler hell from Shippuden, because part 2
I'm never gonna watch all of that. It's like 40% filler that I'm skipping it. I don't care.
Whenever they got into a filler arc in part 2, I would not come back until the arc was over. That was sometimes half a year or more. And I would just come back when the canon materials restarted.
Filler's no bueno, especially when it fills so much.
That's why My Hero Academia is doing it right.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That and Shokugeki no Soma. Take breaks. Let the manga progress. Come back to it when you can actually do it justice. Instead of just, hey, Here's some filler because we like money.
There's a couple filler arcs in Naruto that are actually really cool, and they put themselves in the canon. So like there's an entire like 12 episode stint all about Kakashi's life, and you get to see firsthand the things that he went through as a child up into his adulthood. Right, it finishes right up to when he does the bell training with Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. That's like where the arc ends. So you get so much perspective on his life, and I was like, "That's good filler content. Give me that instead of this other bull."
If it's relevant, I'm okay with it. But when it's
they did it again.
Experience is just like nonsensical.
They did it again with Itachi, except it covered a particular event that takes place. That we see in the anime, like animated like 4,000 times. Yes. Like, stop telling me that. So that's
exactly what I think. Okay.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, we like went way off the beaten path.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about My Hero Academia.
It was Black Clover.
But we're gonna move into Black Clover.
It's still airing, still good. We actually got to see some action with the Wizard King. Got to see him fight some people, and it was kind of hype.
Maybe one day I'll be compelled, but as of now,
the main character isn't yelling as much.
That's good.
I think it's because we actually like see action involving other characters.
So he yells less because he's on the screen less.
Yep.
That's like why Bulma was invented as a character, because Toriyama was like, I guess I can't make a show that's just about Goku.
Yeah. I was talking to a guy who's he reads the manga for it. He's like, I'm glad I read the manga because you can't hear him shout. But like the story actually is compelling enough to the point where I would recommend people watch it. It just you have to wade through like the first few episodes. They're very slow, very hard to get through. But if you can, it eventually takes very interesting twists.
Maybe someday.
About that.
You know, I was in middle school when the last generation of shonen anime started, and we finally achieved the end of the show I was the most committed to. I don't know if I can do this again.
That's fair. I'm gonna go through like the first 50 episodes, and then I'll see how long of a break they take with Black Clover, where they're at when they come back with it, and I'll decide, hey, do I still want to watch this? I mean, my list right now is 2, 4, 6, 7 anime I watched this week. So. And I mean, granted, I think 2 of them aren't recurring. 3 of them definitely won't have more than 1 season, I would imagine. But that's a lot of anime, and I don't want to commit to like 7 anime. That's stretching myself really thin.
Yeah, I was about to say that seems like a lot.
Well, I'm still watching Persona 5 because I didn't get enough of that from the game.
Is it good?
It's interesting. Like the story is pretty much exactly what you'd expect the presentation from the game to be if it was translated into an anime. And so it's very like to the point. It doesn't skip around a whole lot or add in a bunch of fluff. Actually, they do give the main character somewhat of a personality. Like they gave him a name. He talks. I wish it was dubbed so I could get a better sense of like him as a person. It's kind of hard to get that just from reading his like very few lines. He's kind of like Kratos, where he's like very to the point when he's speaking. It's very A to B. And so the other thing with it is that like the way they do action sequences are they take a battle and they literally just animate it exactly, like take away the menus and put it in the anime style of like the cutscenes, and that's the action sequences of the show. So they're kind of weak. But other than that, like, if you really want to experience the story of Persona 5, but you don't want to play it, which I completely understand, it's a very solid way to go about it.
I've never heard like anything exceptional about like the Persona anime adaptations. Like
I don't think they were ever that grandiose. Like I think there was one for Persona 4 that's on my watch list, and it's like 13 episodes. I can't imagine cutting a 100+ hour game down to 13 episodes and it being a perfect representation of it.
Yeah. I mean, even like the Danganronpa or Danganronpa anime that I tried watching, I got a few episodes in and I was like, maybe this is a bad anime.
I was able to watch all of it. It's a very confusing story, though, so I don't think that helps it.
You don't like
you also like
you miss out on all of the exciting stuff. The exciting part, I'm gonna guess, was partly the investigation, but here, like, this thing's here, this thing's there. We found it. Okay, let's get to the trial.
I mean, also, like, the anime for that didn't have Sean Chiplock in it.
We love you, Sean.
In the game. So obviously, the anime it couldn't compare to the game.
Looks like you're also watching Children of the Whales still.
Yeah, I actually finished that. Okay. Somehow I made it to it's 12 episodes. Somehow I watched through episode 11 and forgot to go back and watch the last episode. Last night I'm like, did I ever finish that? I didn't. You know, so I sat down and finished that.
That almost happened to me with Bates Motel. Because I finished like season 4 on Netflix, and I was like, is this the way they're ending it? Is this the ending? Because it could have totally been the ending. And then I was like, oh my god. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I went to Wikipedia to just like read back over the plot, make sure I understood everything correctly. And then I was like, wait a minute, there's a season 5. And then I bought it on Amazon immediately and binged it.
Right on, man.
So I know that pain.
Children of the Whales, isn't that a Netflix original?
Yeah,
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
The thing I don't know about it is it left off in a very weird place, and there's definitely room for a season 2, but I haven't researched it to find out if there's going to be.
So is it a question of, does it end here, or will there be more?
I mean, it definitely doesn't end there. It's a question of, will there be more, because it's just such a weird show.
Netflix seems to cancel a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I watched the first season, the first episode, a little bit different, right? Of Children of the Whales, and I liked what they were going with it, and I was also impressed by the fact that it seemed like Netflix was publishing, like, or at least like in the U.S., you know, some really like high quality animated shows, you know, anime, specifically Japanese animation. So
I want them to get back around to Seven Deadly Sins, because that was one I went into it watching it. I thought they casually.
Isn't it Seven Deadly and has another name now?
There was a second season, but it was really just an OVA, and it was 4 episodes long. And they're like, "Hey, this is season 2." No, it actually made me more upset.
That sounds like a Kenichi.
Season left me really like itching to get another season. And then, like, they throw that crap at me like it's actually going to do something. And then it does progress the plot a little bit forward, but not near enough as what I was expecting. I was expecting to get another 26 episodes for this, and I didn't get it.
So they were like, oh, we know Paul wants more of the show.
Let's spite him.
Let's give it to him.
Where's the next Madoka Magica movie?
Oh, yeah, no kidding.
I'm sure it'll come eventually, but, like...
We've had a teaser for it like 2 years ago.
Oh, hold on. So one of the other Netflix original anime that I watched actually was a recommendation by Dreamdrop Sora. Hopefully you're still in the chat. It was Kakegurui? I don't know.
It's a Kakegurui.
It's a very interesting, and like the tone of it is so dark and so crazy. I've watched like 3 episodes on accident. I went to watch 1 and I watched 3.
Whoops! Oops! Sorry.
Because that never happens to any of us.
It takes place in a high school that, like... I'm trying to think of the counterpart, because I've seen a very similar situation in another series, and I can't place it. The emphasis was on something complete... It might have been... what was the Gurren Lagann like anime? It was like the same creator.
Kill la Kill?
It was like Kill la Kill, maybe?
Kill la Kill. That was the same studio.
The high school in this particular anime, it centers around like gambling. And so it's kind of like a form of currency, or like social currency.
Are you talking about the one where you have to like win parts of your classroom? Is that the one you were thinking about? You told us about it.
No Soma. I'm an idiot.
Wait, it's about... Okay.
It's like the Shokugeki system, except instead of cooking to like having a food war, you're gambling for like social status.
Oh,
I'm an idiot. I'm so sorry.
We talked about this show already.
I know. So you get this. It starts with like a transfer student coming in, and she I don't know how she gets taken by this like scrub, but there's this kid who's not good at gambling at all, and so he's like the very lowest of class in his school, where he's basically just a slave to the people that he's in debt with. And she comes in and she's, what is it when you like pretend to not be good at something?
Hustling.
And then she's really good at hustling to figure out
of
how
course
these
that's going to
people
be an
are
aspect
cheating.
of a gambling anime.
She hustles to figure out like how these people are cheating, because everybody's cheating that's like on like the student council and really high up in the like the roster. And so she always like intentionally loses the first few rounds, and then she just goes super crazy. She like, you know, switches to the crazy eyes, and you know, I see exactly what you're doing and I'm gonna beat you. It's really cool. Weird, really. The tone is insane.
I like shows that feature like characters that are incredibly smart and like they outwit their opponents. Like that's why I love Shikamaru in Naruto and Lelouch in Code Geass.
Oh,
I like it so far. It's not. I didn't know what to expect, but it's.
I'm gonna have to give that a watch.
Something different.
I think I just added like the vast majority of like Netflix original anime to my list, because that's already on my list on Netflix.
Heck yeah,
what else
man.
You got, Paul? I know you got a long list.
Well, I'm actually on the last one.
Ooh, boy.
Steins Gate Zero. And this, I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I think I got a really good lay of the land just from the first episode alone. I've talked a little bit about Steins Gate before and how you have a group of like mad scientists and they keep going back in time. And the main character has like, they don't really explain how, but he's the only person when they make changes to the timeline, he remembers them, but he's the only one. And so a lot of crazy things happen and they get really far like diverged from how things were. And so he has to slowly figure out what they did and fix it. And that's the plot of the original series. In this season, it's an alternate timeline. It's a different divergent. I think they call it like the beta stream. One of the main characters is dead. And it completely like crushes his spirit. And so he's done time traveling. He's done with his club. He's done with everything. He's going to counseling. He's just kind of readjusted. He's going to college. He's dating. Things that you would not expect from this character. And there's one character that comes from the future, and she refers to this as the darkest timeline, the worst divergence. And so it really set the tone of the season about how they have to get the guy's spirit back up and start figuring out how to fix things. And I really like Steins Gate, and you guys need to watch it, please. It's a simuldub, so it's Funimation. You get it on Verve.
It's a simuldub,
and it's just really good. And I like it a whole lot, and I'm offended you guys haven't watched it yet.
There's so much stuff to consume. So much stuff.
So that's it for anime this week for me, at least.
Corey Dresser, if you're still in the Facebook chat, sorry I missed your comment. I replied to you in text, so you can check that. That brings us to games. We're gonna have to fly through this because I have to go to dinner.
Gotcha.
So,
well, we played Ninja Storm. It's Ninja Storm still.
Yeah, maybe that first game isn't good.
I was playing it this morning, and then everything, camera being slow, clicked into place. And I'm like, it seriously can't be at speed.
Why
There's gotta be somewhere
so
to change it.
Slow? Oh my god!
I can't even like navigate the hub world very well because of it.
You can't change it.
One of the interesting things about that game, though, is that the hub world is actually a lot more interactive than the later games became. Like, you have that ability to, I think it's like the Naruto cannon, so you can just kind of like propel yourself into an arc.
Yeah, you make a shadow clone, and the shadow clone throws the main Naruto.
You can throw like shurikens at things.
It's like the overworld's cool, and you can like talk to NPCs and jump around. There's a lot of like mobility that makes it really fun to explore the Leaf Village, and all the landmarks are there. The problem is that there's not much going on outside of that. I mean, there's like some buttons you can put blocks on to open some doors. That's about it.
The thing that really stood out to me so far is that I just want to play the story, and I don't quite know what I'm doing yet.
You have to take on missions. So you like have to accept missions. Those missions give you experience points, and you have to have a certain amount of experience points to take on the story missions.
Well, what I just heard is I'm going to play Storm 2. I'm just going to skip it. I don't need this.
I'm like 3 arcs deep into the game, and I've only experienced 2 story-based battles. 2. Only 2.
That's not okay.
And at this point in the anime, it would have been about 60 episodes deep.
That's not okay. That's very not okay.
I know that they do a lot more towards the end, just from things I've seen on the internet, but it's still not going to be like the level of Storm 3 and 4. I think I figured
it out. When they were translating the anime into a game, they're like, well, what about all that filler? We should put that in the game.
What if we made it bad?
This game so great. You know what fans of Naruto love? They love filler.
That's their thing.
Give them filler.
That's their thing. That's why most of the show.
The thing about Storm 2, 3, and 4 is that
they're good games.
It's like cinematic experiences. Like when you're playing the story mode. Like this is what you'd expect a video game to try and do with the story. The cutscenes are super cool. The voice acting is good. It hits all of the major beats. Storm 1 is just it's like it's the first game featuring this 3D style battle arena combat system. So obviously that's probably what most of their development resources went into. And then an incredible amount of development resources went into probably going into the overworld, the hub, running around the Leaf Village. And I'm like, maybe you could have sacrificed that for a better single-player experience.
It still does something with the combat that I don't like, and that's when you're using your ultimate jutsu, you actually have to put in like input commands. And I'm really glad that they did away with that in the later games.
Yeah, they refined the combat.
Can you do sexy jutsu? Can you please tell me you can do sexy jutsu?
I'm sure it's somewhere in there as part of like a combo.
I haven't experienced the sexy jutsu yet.
Oh, that's disappointing.
The sexy jutsu is in Clash of Ninja on the GameCube.
Those were good games.
Oh, I guess Clash.
The thing about Clash of Ninja though is that those are actually
gone but never forgotten.
They're good fighting games, like on top of being Naruto games. So like, there's a really good balance of hey, this is actually a good game, and like hey, this is a Naruto game.
I'm still really upset that those games died off because they were so fantastic.
Yeah, Revolution 3 was awesome.
Ultimate Ninja Storm, like if that character roster could have translated into Clash of Ninja, you'd have the Ultimate Naruto franchise.
Yeah, Clash of Ninja would be by far the superior series.
Especially if we got on that HD.
I know Dylan is going to like listen to this at some point and then fight me on that because he thinks the PS2 original Ultimate Ninja games are better. I disagree.
I mean, I don't always tell people their opinions are wrong. But that's one of those cases where your opinion's wrong. I'm sorry, Dylan.
So outside of...
We can duke it out in Clash Ninja.
Outside of Storm, Paul, you've played more Unholy Heights?
I got I think, second upgrade to my hotel.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to the first upgrade. I need to sit down. Oh, I just need to have more time. It's a lot better when you get
upgrades.
Yeah, I imagine that'd be the case because it's a little slow at the beginning.
One of the things that I've discovered with that is as you get more floors, it's easier to keep people alive. You keep the tenants you actually like on the second floor, and like. I always send like the first room in the bottom left corner out to fight, and so those people on the first floor are constantly dying. They're getting massacred, and then I sacrifice them because they're replaceable. Everybody's replaceable except for the people on the second floor, because as their satisfaction increases, they get stronger, and so I think my second floor right now is all families, so at least 2 people living in each room. And they're all extremely satisfied. So I have an armada upstairs.
Have you had to kick out any children yet? Boot the babies to the street?
I actually only had 1 kid so far.
Oh, really?
Of all the couples I've had, like, they just do not produce children.
Oh.
I gotta get them better beds,
What
I
a
guess.
problem to have.
Yeah, I'll never forget that first time when I'm like, oh, there's a child. Oh, his parents are dead.
I accidentally killed the one kid's
rent.
mother, but I think I think the parent found another love eventually.
Okay.
So it's all okay.
Speaking of parental relationships, we
Oh boy.
we all finished God of War.
The implications of the end?
I was wondering
boy.
about that. I was like, are they going to set this up for a sequel? Or are we going to have a finite ending? This is
No,
the beginning of something bigger.
Well, it was funny because there was a finite. The true ending was, you know, spoiler alert, getting to the top of the mountain and scattering your mother's ashes. And then the credits start to roll.
You learned something very vital there. It was actually like, it went over my head until I got done with like that last cutscene. That they mention in a conversation that like Odin's first lover was a giant. And you know, who's Odin's son? You have Thor, you have Loki. Loki's mom's a giant.
And she wanted to name him Loki.
And to her people, he was named Loki. I think that Atreus is actually the son of Odin. That he actually is Loki, the trickster god.
Poor Kratos. What a trick to play on your dad.
What a trick to play.
It took me a long time to piece that together, though, because they finally revealed that, you know, their mother was a giant. In a conversation, I think it was before that they mentioned that Odin's first wife was a giant, and she just disappeared.
See, at the very end of the game, they set up some arcs that I feel like they would answer in a subsequent game. Specifically with Freya getting all hecka mad.
Heckin' mad.
That made me really upset.
Sorry I spoiled that battle for you, Logan.
No, it's okay. I mean, I told you to play, so you can't.
Neither of us knew it would be the final battle.
Right. Also, we didn't know. I mean, it was okay because actually my favorite parts were those final moments.
Oh,
I'm just glad
for
I
sure.
didn't see that, you know. Going to Jotunheim and spreading those ashes, and it, you know, with all that lore that came with that final kind of scene, I guess, with all that exposition about being a giant and stuff. I felt like, okay, I feel like they're building towards a sequel here.
Yeah.
Like they're leaving a lot of questions. They give you that finality, you know, the thing you set out to do, you got to do. So there was that finality, but then there was also like, hey, Ragnarok is coming. Also, Atreus, you're a half giant.
By the way,
and your name was going to be Loki.
The fact that the true ending of the game is the spreading of the ashes, that's so incredible to me because that goal is set from the very opening moments of the game, and that's actually how it ends. I'd never expected it to end that way. I thought there would have either been something that happened afterwards, or you know, we'd learn more things like after that takes place. But no, like that's the end of the game.
Yeah, and it's really like a point of
it's the
exposition.
end of the game. I mean, you have one scene after that.
Yeah, there's
it's
just
a really
some
good scene.
Right. Some exposition in those moments where they're like, this moment was a lot more significant than anybody anticipated that it would be. We're not just spreading ashes. All of a sudden, you know, your entire view of the characters changed.
Did you guys?
And then Kratos, you know, he also like. Sorry to cut you off, Logan. This like just hit me.
You cut me off too.
Well, like, you know, towards the end of the game, like after that final battle, Kratos tells Atreus that he killed his own father, and if Odin is actually the father of Atreus, well, history is probably going to repeat itself. But which father is he going to kill?
I really hope the next game is Boy of War, not God of War, just Boy of War. But did you guys
anticipating God of War 2? Yeah.
Did you guys tear up when he finally called Atreus son instead of just boy?
Yeah, they just kind of like snuck that in there.
Oh my gosh, the tone of their relationship changes so much throughout the game.
But you also get like hints of a very dark side of Atreus that could bring itself back up soon.
Yeah, I imagine that they'll play on that a little the next game, because that's what I'm anticipating. I'm anticipating God of War 2. 5. Technically, God of War 5.
Got a boy.
Maybe
I
would say 2 to 3 years. Maybe it's the swan song of the PS4 before they release the PS5. But then it'll also come out on the PS5.
Well, God of War had like a 5-year development cycle. So if they reuse assets or like they build it in this engine, which I hope they do.
That's what I was anticipating. So they made a bunch of the big changes with this entry. So it'd be kind of silly just to throw it all out, but I imagine they'll change like a few things. But I think most of the mechanics they're all there already. Just build a new game around it, change some things, and improve upon some things.
There's also maybe the next game will be
that much more open. Yes, yeah.
We should have more reason to explore a world that is now covered in snow.
Ooh.
It's a good game.
I'm down.
So there's one more scene at the end of the game. If you go back home, you and Atreus will sleep for years. For one thing, years, because you were awoken by the rumblings of a mad god.
Get woke.
You step outside. I see a cloaked figure. His cape reveals Mjolnir. It's Thor. Hey, Thor, what's up?
Dad.
It's the Avengers!
Yeah, this is the post-credit scene. Kratos will return in Avengers 4. Oh my god, that was intense.
I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't after I spread the ashes. I thought that was it, because you got those like credits as you're walking back, and they're like, "Hey, you can go home." I'm like,
and then what? You
maybe
wake
go home
up from the dream in the time period that you originally.
Yeah, so I imagine.
Because Brandon, you said did you watch the credits?
I did.
Okay, I just skipped them.
It was almost exactly half an hour.
That's a lot of credits.
I'm glad they made it skippable then.
I didn't even try to skip it. I just let it happen.
Yeah, I think you can also see the credits from like some of the options.
Well, I was also worried, like, hey, I don't want to inadvertently skip something that might happen during the credits either.
Well, I'm glad you are our guinea pig.
Well, then I should tell you guys about secret ending number 2 that takes place during the credits.
This is Thanos MCU.
Thanos will return.
We got the one post-credit scene. That's all we need.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do get some kind of DLC offering before we get to a God of War 2 too. That would be kind of nice, because it's going to be a long wait to hear what happens to Kratos and Atreus next, because this is one of like the most fantastical game narratives I've experienced in a long time. It's really in its own league, to be honest.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But I mean, at least in between then, we're gonna get a ton of other games. I mean, we already got Last of Us 2, God of War. That's what we're calling it now, right? They were calling God of War Last of Us, right?
It's actually God of War 2. That's The Last of Us 2.
There we go. So now the comparison has flipped.
Joel of Ellie. Yeah, so was it just me, or was it like hard to tell like where in the game you were? Like, it was never really clear how close to the end you were. Like I said, I had that expectation that the game would go beyond spreading the ashes on the mountain. So when the credits started rolling there, I was actually surprised.
Well, at every point after certain, like about halfway through, every point, well, we're gonna go to the top of the mountain, but something's gonna get in the way.
There was even like
every time,
a time or two
just start anticipating it,
where Mimir was like, you should probably do other things you want to do maybe before going forward. Hint, hint. And that's usually the point of no return message that games have been recently providing the players, which is a very nice thing to do, by the way. Horizon Zero Dawn had that in a couple places, and there was a couple times I was like, is this the final sequence? And then it wasn't.
But I think what I like about what God of War, they were like very clear. It's like, well, I mean, these characters don't stop after the game is over. Yeah. Like, we know that Ragnarok is coming. everything's getting snowier.
It's years away, just like the game.
Right. And so like in that moment, it's like, oh, playing. Like there's still things to do. There's still all these Valkyries. There's still a bunch of sets of armor that are like really hard to obtain.
All that secondary content is really, really good. So, like, you should spend time doing that stuff because it is great.
I wasn't anticipating that I was going to go back after, but I might revisit this from time to time.
I'm considering 100%ing the rest of this.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to anytime soon, but eventually I do want to go back and find everything.
Yeah.
It's a good game.
Yeah, I mean, but it does feel good. I do feel a sense of high now. Back to the game, I would feel okay about that, you know, because I got what I wanted from the game. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, cool, I can go back. I can really, really get into the combat if I wanted to, and just totally tear up the Valkyries, and do all these other collectibles and platinum this game to heck, you know, all that good stuff.
Even Josiah mentioned like he's never seen this many people platinum a game. It's that good.
It's really good.
It's so deserving of the praise it's receiving.
Yeah,
if you don't have a PlayStation 4, now's a good time. Get one.
You know, I feel like maybe to a lesser extent, it'll be like another Breath of the Wild situation where the game is such a fantastic, like all the systems are so good and it's so much fun just as a sandbox. That people will keep going back to it and doing cool new things and showing off what they're doing in the game. Specifically God of War with like the combat, you know, pull off a really cool combat string and manage a ton of enemies, do some of these Valkyries, you know.
What's the coolest axe throw you can perform? What's the coolest axe trick shot? So yeah, I'm so glad I went out and bought this game like the night of, you know, the day it came out, and just we all finished it around the same time. Now we're all here at the same place. It doesn't feel like I spent enough time to have actually beaten it yet. It's just, it feels so like time just slipped away.
I wish PS4 had like an hour counter on gameplay because I want to know how long I spent.
Same. Obviously, some games do it. Monster Hunter World keeps track of how much time you spend in that save file. You know?
It would be nice if we had like a global, like a system level thing.
Yeah, I mean, at least on Switch we get that, you know, every 5 hours. So at least, and that's all I think of.
They actually increased the increments too in a recent update.
Nice. But I think that's just for the first 5 hours. So you get to see if you've played an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. But once it hits 5 hours, then it goes by fives. But again, when you say you play a game, you don't say 203 hours. You say 200 or 205 hours, 210 hours.
1,000 hours in Monster Hunter Tri.
Yeah, I mean, once you have 1,000 hours, then like an hour,
12
you know, you go by
seconds.
Increments of 5, you go by increments of 10. So
I actually keep track of it in the nearest tenth of a second.
Yeah.
One of the conversations in games media right now is that God of War proves that the single-player narrative-driven video game is still very much alive.
Yeah,
they're not going away. Like
they better not. They're good.
This game is like the cream of the crop when it comes to that. So the prospect of getting a sequel that could be better than the first game is almost more exciting than just finding out what happens next.
Right.
So I think it's pretty clear that we all love God of War. There is one more thing that we have to talk about in regards to the game, though, and that is the third post-credit scene where Kratos walks up to a tree and Nick Fury walks out from behind it.
Stop! Stop!
Is that the one with Iron Man too?
What's that?
Is that the one where Iron Man also shows up?
Yeah.
Cool.
And then the tree turns into Groot.
I think this conversation just died and you killed it.
I was trying to because I have to go to dinner. Thank you guys for watching today's episode. A couple things that I want to bring up before we finish out. If you go to our Twitter page, @BreakroomArcade, there is currently a tweet pinned to the top. We are trying to name our gameplay video series, and we want your help. You have one more day to vote on these choices. We have 4 choices available. You can also reply with your own original suggestions. If we do end up using that, you'll be credited when the time comes. So look for that on the Twitter page. This morning, we launched our Patreon, so you can officially support us through Patreon if you feel so inclined. If you do, we'd very much appreciate it. We put a lot of work into it. We hope we have some lucrative rewards for you there, such as, you know, early access to our videos, some better ways and more interactive ways for you to interact with the Breakdown podcast. You can look, there's a link in the description to the Patreon. Check that out for some more details on that. There's also a link to our public Discord server in the description. Definitely check that out as well. We want you guys to show up. We want you to interact with us. We definitely want to talk with you. Just, you know, find out what you like. We'll tell you what we like, and maybe someday you'll hear about it on the show. You never know. We got some new videos on the way. Logan has a brand new episode of Road to Smash that'll be coming out next week, so look forward to that. That's our ongoing video series on Super Smash Brothers, leading up to the reveal of the game, and quite possibly afterwards. It really just depends on what Nintendo does. We don't know yet. But that's our original video essay series on Super Smash Brothers. It's been a lot of fun. Paul did one on how he wants the Smash Ball to change, and final smashes in Smash 5. So definitely check that out. In the first episode, Logan did on the game being a port. You want to check that out as well. And then I did an episode.
Especially if you still think it's a port.
Yeah, if you think it's a port, maybe watch that episode. And maybe also watch...
quit having nightwares about it.
Nightwares. I'm going to have a night... See, that's a new term. So, like, any game that's actually a port, but you want it to be a sequel, it's a nightware. Nightmare software.
What was your video on?
My video was on how Super Smash Brothers influenced my career as a filmmaker. Quite a story there, so definitely check that out. There's even a sneak peek at some of the types of video content we made in our younger years.
Sneak peek implies something good and new. I don't know if that's quite the word for it.
It is not good, nor is it new. So definitely do all those things. Yeah. If you liked this video, please leave us a like. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Twitter. Follow us at our personal Twitters. I'm at Babababs. Logan's at LoggyDoves. Paul's at Gunnysaurus. Breakroom Arcade is at Breakroom Arcade. We're on Facebook. If you're watching this on Twitch, please leave us a follow. Head over to the YouTube channel, like and subscribe. Lots of things, lots of ways you can help us here on the show. And if you're listening to this and you downloaded it, you're the real MVP. So if you're on the podcast sources, rate us. We really need the help. Things have been getting better over there, so it's all thanks to you guys. And is there anything else you guys have to say before we wrap it up?
No, sir.
So we will see you live next Friday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. Check out our new content coming in the coming week. Please help us on Patreon. Follow us on Twitter. Don't break your backs, break in the games. But for now, break time's over.